Let's get into it. Coach Colin here. Listen, there are going to be some people, I'm guessing some black people as well, that are going to be very annoyed by what I have to say, but even more so from the clip that I'm about to play. Tucker Carlson sits down with a gentleman. I want to make sure I get his name right because I have a lot of respect for this guy. Vince Everett Ellison. This gentleman just said some great things, some surprising things as well about MLK. Now, what he's talking about mainly is how the left actually destroyed the black community over time. He's saying things that go a lot in sync with what Byron Donalds was talking about, how the black family, the black community was one way, and then through the erosion of the left, but not just the left. He has a lot to say about MLK and how MLK not only helped cause this to happen, cause a certain mindset in black people, an oppressed mindset in black people, but also was in line with a bunch of communists. Now, he's going to make some claims. He's going to name some people. And then after the clip, I'm actually going to show you a little bit about these people. And he was right. He was very correct. MLK was very aligned with communists and also with some pretty big families. One of the 13, actually. So let's get into that. Tucker Carlson and this gentleman. Let's go.
It's the civil rights movement, man. All those communists and Marxists got involved with all these counterculture people, the feminists, and they wanted power. And the way you get power is by feminizing men. LGBTQ comes in. We are a threat to them. John Wayne's a threat, man. Jesus Christ is a threat. The guys that stand up and say, no, it's this way, because they wanted to change everything. They hated J. Edgar Hoover, not because J. Edgar Hoover hated black people, please. They hated J. Edgar Hoover because J. Edgar Hoover hated communists. And he kicked all their asses. He took them all down. And when Hoover died, they had to destroy Hoover to make it seem like that the civil rights movement and all the crap they were doing with the Black Panthers and whatnot was successful. These people were horrible people. The Panthers were selling dope on the street. They were infighting and beating women. Huey Newton beat Bobby Seale with a bull whip. It was insanity going on there. They were just a mob. But they would take these people and they would elevate them and say that this is how you need to be because we need you as suicide bombers. The way Hamas has this martyrs wall, right? So that they can have these little children growing up wanting to kill themselves for Hamas. They're training us to be the exact same way. Marching, sweating, while they're setting up in Beverly Hills and in Manhattan, drinking their little, tequilas and whatnot. Black people out there doing all the marching, all the sweating, and getting the hell beat out of them and put in jail. We're their shock troops. We're their Hitler Youth. That's why they need us. And they're going to keep that going.
So, but to feminize, so the idea is to make men feminism because you take them off the table as a threat.
Sure. They're not a threat anymore whatsoever. And you and I are both old enough to remember the whole feminist movement with the bra burning and, oh boy, I don't need a man. We're equal to men. Marriage is like slavery. All of that. And that was a Marxist construct.
So that wasn't about liberation?
Oh, it was. I think that they sold it as that. It was about destroying the family. Absolutely. Because when you destroy the family, when you destroy the whole concept of family, the government has to come in and take over. And that's what it did. The black family got destroyed behind that. Now the white family's going down too. And America's in a death spiral. Man, they destroyed us from within. You remember what Abraham Lincoln said, right? He said, nobody can cross the Pacific Ocean and take America by force. We must live as free men or die by suicide. We'll have to destroy ourselves. How do you destroy America? You must take out God, drive it mad, and have us destroy one another. And that's exactly what's happening now. No foreign nation is destroying America. America is committing suicide in real time. Well, you and I, as we get older, sit here and watch it and say, oh my God, what can we do to stop this?
So the civil rights movement, the official civil rights movement, was and is still described as a Christian movement.
Yeah.
Was it?
No, anything but. You know, it's been a lot of great scholarship done recently. Virgil Walker has done a lot of good scholarship. James MacArthur has done some good scholarship. And they have, John MacArthur, they've looked at King's papers from Stanford. Come to find out that King wasn't even a Christian.
He wasn't a Christian?
No, they said he didn't believe in the deity of Christ, didn't believe in the virgin birth, didn't believe in the resurrection, didn't believe in hell. If you don't believe in those things, you can't be a Christian.
No, that's true.
So when you look at his monument inside of D.C., do you notice Reverend is not on it?
No, I didn't know that.
There's nothing about God on that monument. Nothing. This is not a mistake. This is a confession. They knew exactly who they were. And our Bible tells us that a tree is known, how do you know a false prophet? A tree is known by the fruit it bears.
That's right.
You will not get good fruit from a bad tree or bad fruit from a good tree. Each tree and its fruit will be after its own kind. So when you look at the black community and the condition that it's in, if it's bad fruit, the tree had to be bad.
That's right.
And if it's bad fruit, it's a false prophet. It's binary. And when you look at where we were between 1940 and 1960, the black community had cut its poverty rate from 80% to about 35% in 20 years, the greatest reduction of poverty in the history of the world. And then after the civil rights movement, we flatlined. Why? We turned from God to government. And Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement led us on that. And we know how King was all tied up with the communists. Man, Stanley Levinson was the one communist in America. Bayard Rustin had been a communist in his youth. The guy that ran the SELC, his name was Jack Odell, Hunter Pitts Odell. He was a communist. King's lawyer, Clarence Jones, was a communist. Clarence Jones and Stanley Levinson say they wrote the I Have a Dream speech. They were both communists. And when you look at the I Have a Dream speech, it's amazing when you dissect it and deconstruct it. Because when King says 5 times in that speech, the first thing he said was, 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, the Negro is still not free. That is a lie. I was born free. My freedom is a gift from God. It's an unalienable right. According to John Locke and his second treatise of government, it is irrevocable, non-transferable, and unsellable. Now, King says 5 times in that speech that we were not free. Then at the end, he has that great refrain that on some certain day we'll be free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty we're free at last. Still telling us we're not free. And we make our children recite that speech every year on his birthday, saying that they're not free, that they come to government for their unalienable right to freedom. You don't ask government for your freedom. You defy government to come and try to take it from you. What did our founding fathers say when King George said, I'm your sovereign? No, you're not. I'm going to show you. And he said, I'm not just going to come in and kill you guys. I'm going to bring you back to Great Britain. I'm going to choke you till you're almost dead. Then I'm going to castrate you. Then I'm going to cut you open, let you see your guts before you die. And then after you're dead, I'm going to cut off your limbs and send them to the uttermost parts of the British Empire. And guess what the founding fathers said? Did the declaration and said, we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Put their names on it, sent it to him, and said, bring it. And whooped his ass. Free men. And then they walked around with their chest stuck out. Yeah, we did it. And King is wandering around. King would have asked King George. He said, well, boss, can we be free? No. Well, okay then. We'll just march until you decide to give it to us. Founding fathers said, you don't give us our freedom. We earn it. It's ours. Come and try to take it. And this is the mindset that they've placed into America, Black America first, but now America. And look at the results of it. We're at the bottom of every socioeconomic statistic in America. And there's a revolution now happening here in America. They're turning against the Democratic Party. They're turning away from it because they're seeing that it's not working. Joe Biden walking around, the MAGA crowd, gonna put you in the back of the buses. The MAGA crowd gonna put you back in the cotton field. And black folks look at him like, what? Hey, you didn't see him at Morehouse College?
Yeah, just the other day.
One of the funnest things I ever saw in my life.
What did
These
he
are
say?
young black men, 21, 22 years old, right? He up there talking, they're gonna put you in the back of the buses. They're gonna make you eat your hamburgers in the back of the restaurant. And they're looking at him like,
Man, again, this guy's name is Vincent Everett Ellis. Check his stuff out. I have nothing respect for this guy. I want nothing more to interview this guy. He says a lot of things that are gonna piss off a lot of young black people, especially the ones that are stuck in the oppression mindset. And you know, he kind of exemplifies the point that a lot of this oppressed mindset stems from the civil rights movement. And a lot of people don't talk about how things were for the black community before all of that. It's kind of the same when you think about women, not women, what was it? Women working. You know, there's a lot of women who didn't care for all of the rights that were supposedly being fought for them at the time because they were happy, maybe they wanted to vote, but they were good just being mothers, and I say just being mothers, but it's one of the hardest things. You know what I mean? My wife's doing it right now. It's terribly hard. I can't even put this baby to sleep. My wife does it effortlessly. Like, it's not just being a mother, but they were very happy playing that position and having the man be the provider. And I'm experiencing it right now. It's so much better when it's like that. And kind of to the same thing as the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement was like, oh, you're not free and you're being oppressed. And there were a lot of black people at that time who were like, what are you talking about? What are you saying? What do you mean? Because at the time there was a lot of there was a lot of black places, neighborhoods where your dentist was black, the police were black, everybody was black, everybody in your school was black. It was just a black place. The money, the dollar was staying within the community. So explaining that to those people that they were being oppressed, they were like, huh. Chad O. Jackson, I'm going to show you guys Chad O. Jackson real quick. He has a video where he's talking about, he's actually sitting with Officer Tatum when he talks about this. And he says that this whole movement brought about this thought process where black people kind of had this mindset, well, like, oh, maybe white people, maybe their stuff in their society is better. Maybe we should be allowed access. But in reality, they already had their own thing going on. That's why, Vincent, he says from 1940 to 1960, they brought poverty down from 80% to 35%. It's because the dollar, it was staying within the community. Everything, for the most part, was quite good. Now let me just look into something really quick to show you guys something. There's some people that he mentioned that King was actually working alongside that were communists. And this is not a made up thing. Funny enough, I mean, we're talking about Stanford. The gentleman was talking about Stanford. And if you look here, these are research documents from Stanford. So the first one was, his name is Stanley David Levinson. So I was like, okay, let me look into this guy real quick. I just did a couple of searches. I found these documents. There's more of them as well. This is you go to King Institute. What is it? KingInstitute.com? KingInstitute.com. Yes. Okay, so let's just read this really quick. 1956, Stanley Levinson, a Jewish attorney from New York, began raising funds to support the Montgomery bus boycott and became acquainted with Dr. King. The two men developed a close relationship in which Levinson not only advised King, but also aided him with his day-to-day administration demands of the movement. In 1963, the FBI used King's relationship with Levinson, who they believed to be a communist functionary, to justify surveilling King. Now, there's another part of this same document here. The FBI, let me just read this. So the FBI's interest in Levinson was suddenly rekindled in 1959 when the Bureau learned that Levinson's connection with King and the movement. Now, FBI Chief J. Edgar Hoover believed that Levinson was a communist agent and that through Levinson, international communism influenced King's actions, which is actually what was happening. The gentleman was a communist, okay, right? And so many people get bent over when I say somebody's a gentleman and they're like, oh, there's not a gentleman. Hey, it's YouTube. I'm not just going to start swearing because you want me to swear. That's not how this works. So anyway, this guy, he actually did influence King's actions. Like you just read in that top thing, he was actually helping him in his day to day. They actually had a very, very close relationship. Just to finish this off, he brought this concern to the attention of the Attorney General, Robert Kennedy, and Harris Warford was enlisted by the Kennedy administration to warn King to end his relationship with Levinson. Unwilling to lose a trusted advisor because of vague allegations, King refused to act on the administration's request for over a year. In March 1962, Robert Kennedy had authorized the FBI to begin electric surveillance of Levinson, including his contact with King. So that's very, very interesting. And this Levinson guy was a communist, very much so. Anyway, let me just move on to this. There's also a book written. This book is called Dangerous Friendship, Stanley Levinson, Martin Luther King Jr., and the Kennedy Brothers. Very interesting book, but it just talks about this long-standing relationship that they had and the fact that the man was actually a part of the Communist Party in the USA. And he was a financier to the Communist Party of the USA. The product of the long-concealed FBI surveillance documents, A Dangerous Friendship, chronicles a history of Martin Luther King Jr., that the government kept secret from the public for years. The book reveals the story of Stanley Levinson, a well-known figure in the Communist Party USA who became one of King's closest friends and effectively his most trusted advisor. Levinson, a Jewish attorney and businessman, became King's pro bono ghostwriter, accountant, fundraiser, and legal advisor. So, very interesting stuff, man. So that was one person that he mentioned. This is just something that I always notice. I don't know if you know who this is. This is a Rothschild family. So King is just King and his wife with Jacob Rothschild and his wife. That was just a quick thing that I always remembered seeing. Let's move on here. Who is this about? Let me see really quick. This is another person that he mentioned, Bayard Rustin. So check this out. This gentleman was also a communist. Very interesting. While a student at City College of New York in the 1930s, Rustin joined the Youth Communist League, drawn to what he believed was the communist commitment to racial justice. Rustin left the organization when the Communist Party shifted their emphasis away from the civil rights activity in 1941. Shortly after his departure, Rustin was appointed youth organizer of the proposed 1941 March on Washington by trade union leader A. Philip Randolph. During this period, he joined the Fellowship of the Reconciliation and co-founded the Congress for Racial. So he joined in his youth. He left when it didn't seem like they were going after civil rights and racial injustice anymore. So he was a communist in his youth, which Vince actually said. He said in his youth, this man was a communist. Now, communist Jack Odell. This was another person who's actually mentioned in that clip that we just watched, and he actually had some communist ties as well. Communist Party and FBI surveillance. Odell's membership in the Communist Party led to FBI surveillance and scrutiny. In 1956, he was called to testify before the Senate Internal Security Subcommittee, where he declined to answer questions about his party affiliation. He was also involved in high-profile controversy when President John F. Kennedy and Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy pressured King to distance himself from Odell due to his communist ties. So this is very odd, man. And a lot of people also talk about Martin Luther King being a Marxist. And a lot of people who are in the civil rights movement, in the social justice movement, they do have a lot of ties to Marxism. And if it's usually directly to the ideology, the way that they think things should be going. And King kind of exhibited this while he was going from union to union, talking to the workers. It's usually what they do is they go in with the objective of letting the workers know how oppressed they are, how bad things are for them, and how good that they could actually make them. Now, again, I've never seen anything where, I've never seen MLK say what the leader of the BLM said, where they're like, we're trained Marxists. I've never seen anything of MLK saying that, but just to prove what Vincent was saying, he was very heavily linked to communists. Now, this is his lawyer, Clarence Jones. Now, Clarence Jones, this is a very odd one. So it's not exactly like they're saying that he's communist, but Jones was drafted into the army in 1953. He was given an undesirable discharge as a security risk in April 1955 for refusing to sign the Air Force's loyalty certificate stating that he was not a member of the Communist Party. So he refused to actually say that he was not a communist. They're just like, sign this, and it's just saying that you're not a communist. And he's like, nah, I won't sign that. They're like, we just want to know that you're not a communist. He's like, well, too bad. So the FBI reports compiled in 1957 identified Jones as a member and a leader of the Labor Youth League, described as a Communist Party front organization. During his years at Columbia, his discharge status was later changed to honorable on appeal. So there's that as well. I just wanted to show you guys that just for the fact of he was making a lot of claims about King being aligned with a lot of communists, and it turns out to be true, which is interesting. But even more so towards what Vince was talking about, Mr. Ellis, there was very much throughout the civil rights, if you look at it, there was a lot of people branding black people as oppressed, and it's almost like that oppression just went on forever. I mean, think about it. Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, they're all still at it. They're all still doing it. Maxine Waters, they are constantly sowing fear and the idea that every black person is oppressed throughout the nation. That is just what they do. MSNBC drags them out and they just scream about MAGA and Donald Trump being racist, and they never prove any of their assertions. But all they want you to know is that you're black, you're lesser than, and that you should be afraid of anybody who is Trump or affiliated with Trump. And if it's not Trump, it'll be someone else. They constantly want black people in the state of fear. And I said this in another video, the reason that they're starting to move on and get all of these voters in, potential voters, all these illegal aliens in who are potential voters, is because the black people are waking up. The Hispanic people have woken up. The white people are waking up. Everybody's starting to realize, no, I don't come from that generation where I'm just oppressed. It'd be kind of hard. It's kind of hard to convince someone like me that I'm oppressed when I do these things and I make good money for my family and I don't walk around and get subjected to racism all the time. And then you're trying to explain that to somebody who just graduated from Harvard who's black. And even with that leftist ideology that's pushed on so many people that are in university, it's hard for that gentleman to walk out and be like, oh, I'm very oppressed, I'm a lower class person, when he's literally walking out of school as an upper class person. He could be seen as somebody who's going to be a leader in some kind of field in the world just because he graduated from Harvard. This whole game that they've been playing on us for so long is starting to wear off. It's really starting to wear off. And also to what he said about destroying the family and having people dependent on the state. I've said this so many times. That is exactly what's going on. They want us all dependent on the state. They used to want it to just happen to black people, and they executed on that perfectly. They incentivized mothers to not be with the men who they had babies with. You get baby bonuses. You would get paid more for each child that you had. And there was the incentive right there. Not going to be married to you. I don't need you because I'm getting money from the government. And it just broke up the family. You break up the family. That's literally the foundation of a community. You break up enough black families, the community just goes. It's done. And now they've taken the same strategy that they played on the black community back then, and they're doing it to everybody now. They don't care if you're black or white anymore. They're not looking at that. They want you to be focused on black or white, but they're not focused on that. They're like, okay, who's the next big block of people who could throw us off if because their community's too strong? And they said, oh, well, it's white people, obviously. So let's make sure to have white men be seen as very racist and misogynistic and all these things and dumb and just everything we can throw at them. Let's incentivize the women to not be with these men. Let's make these men look terrible. Let's make anybody who looks at a white man think to themselves, that guy's racist, that guy's part of the problem. That's exactly what they were doing to black people. It's the exact same thing. You'd see a black person back in the day, you'd be like, that's part of the problem. Even some people still to this day, they'll look at black people and be like, oh, gotta watch that guy. Now, same thing. You're in an office and you're this prominent white man. You're tall and good looking and well spoken. They're like, look at him mansplaining to me. Yeah, he's my boss, but he shouldn't be telling me what to do. Same thing. They're doing it to that community now too. They just want us to all be dependent on the state. Very slowly, and not so slowly, honestly, because what is it, probably late 90s to now, it's been happening to white people very, very hard. And now you can find compilations of people being openly racist to white people, openly. And if Instagram existed back in the 40s to the 60s, you'd be able to find compilations of white people being openly racist to black people. It's the same game. They just play it on everybody now. That's it. So also, just to say the last thing that he brought up, you're born free. You are born free. You really are. And for some reason, there's still black people who feel like, oh no, I wasn't born free because that document that he's talking about, that wasn't about me. It's like, yes, it was. You weren't born during slavery. You were born during some of the greatest times in history. That is about you. You were born free. You have inalienable rights that are given to you by God. That's for everybody. But that's exactly why they try to break people away from God and break people away from this mindset of thinking that you're free. Because once you're free and you're not oppressed anymore, this whole game of race baiting that you're seeing from Maxine Waters and Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and Van Jones and Sonny Hoiston and all of these, Joy Reid, all of that all of a sudden just crumbles. It can't work anymore. So just wanted to bring that to you guys. Just something nice and fun. You know what I mean? I know I try to usually keep it funnier on this channel, but there's nothing funny about what this guy's talking about. Again, that gentleman's name is Vince Everett Ellis. He is a great guy. He has a lot of great things to say. If you're a young black person and you're kind of not knowing what to think and feeling oppressed, but then also not feeling oppressed because you got your friends and you're like, listen to what this guy has to say. He's great. A lot of what he's saying is rooted in God, but it's also rooted in the Constitution, and it's rooted in him being a free man and what he's experienced throughout his life. Other than that, guys, like the video, subscribe. It helps the channel tremendously. And other than that, I'm out.